going on that triangle top back here. Same thing as you have in the front. This is with the heels, and going down the center line. So my hand's kind of already in that position, to attack towards the center, collapse the center to that. I'm also kind of like splitting out up here as well, right? So lifting his right arm, up and behind him, and leading him in that same direction. So, all right. So just follow through. Very kind of straightforward. He loses his balance. So, always look at it as, sorry, if he's doing that, I'm obviously posing here, but I would take that opportunity, and if I was going to follow through, to go, after him, if you will, right? Continue to attack, because, they're at a weak point to try to defend themselves. And so many avenues that then open up from just that position, if you will. So if you're looking at that from understanding, what benefit of all balance and so on like that. I'm not saying the exact situation is going to occur, but you could be hand fighting. When they lose their balance, and then off we go. All right, we'll keep it going. 1 point red. That's the first. 1 point we'll let this play. All right, so just once again, just kind of playing with the same kind of technique before, of collapsing in the elbow. A little bit more exaggerated this time around. So again, collapsing the elbow in. So what I'm doing is creating this pressure, creating this threat. Again, going in towards the center line, collapsing to a center, if you will. But also what I've done, I made a straight line with the opposite hand as well. So I got this outside hand coming toward the center, but what he's really feeling, what he's sensing, obviously recall what I was doing. I'm pushing pretty heavy on his right elbow, pushing it in, so he feels a lot of pressure there. He's going to want to try to fight back to try to get it out. So then what's going to do for me is just free up the opposite hand for me to attack on the opposite side over here, right? And I'm over exaggerating my turn. I'm really kind of, almost like in NBA when somebody's flopping, overselling the hit, right? So it's the same thing. I'm overselling by turning everything over, eyes and all that good business, just so I can really play onto that. Wait for him to kind of push out of there. And so as we continue, the pressure's there. And what I'm doing also, he's worried about the right elbow over here. I'm creeping down his forearm with my right hand, getting closer and closer, so I have a good kind of bit of substance to be able to get to his center. So it's like your typical listening skills, levels of sensitivity that's been in play. Obviously, I'm doing it to a point where he's not really noticing that this part over here is a threat. So, it's again kind of playing on the basic principles of yin and yang, if you will. Right. So very heavy on one side, light on the other. Okay. Boom, and then this other thing I like to do, and just mention real fast, and obviously other folks do this as well, so it's not anything unique. But I like to attack at the hip, down the center line, or at the hip in general, right? To make the stability broken from above and below, if you will, right? So you'll see this a lot of times in competitions, even from a distance. A lot of times you'll see people be compromised more so by the hips than anything else, right? It's a very kind of breaking point. So here, this is very deliberate and very kind of explicit right at the hip. Collapsing down to his center, to his hip. And what I'm doing, I'm driving down and back, making it feel heavy down there, so that he has to bear all that force and that mass in his legs. And if he doesn't have a good enough, root, as we say, he's going to kind of scoot back and bounce out of that, if you will. All right. Boom. There we go. Let's keep it moving. So I was going to pause here. I'm actually giving this opponent of mine. I don't know who he is. I was just met at this moment in time, but I was just kind of giving him some pointers since I was continue collapsing his elbows. It's like you can take that hand from the inside and bring it on the outside. You know what I mean? And you won't feel so compromised. Get it back. You know, even if I'm pushing on your elbow, you can move. You know, your forearm and your hand from the elbow. You know, freely without that being something that's limited to you. And if you get it out here, you get behind my shoulder and you just have to do a simple turn. And that turn, I like to do it myself when I get my hand this deep as he has it here. I like to spiral my hand inwards as I'm rotating, and then also drop my own hips down so I can just both turn them and lift them, and also is twisting that shoulder forward, out of alignment for them, right? But I'm just kind of giving him some pointers right now, and just coaching him through it. So this hand right here is leading the elbow through, and I think I have you know a technique that I use all the time where I use my thumb and my finger just to always get behind that elbow if I can, if you will. So anyway, he's just going to follow through what I'm guiding him through is he's going to get that behind my shoulder and he's going to rotate out. And again, he is attacking my triangle point here. So my toe to toe, that triangle's out here somewhere. So he's going to just pull right into that triangle. And then off I go. Right. So, yeah. So, one thing that I'll change up in what I'll do as far as the movement of my hands. I'll stop collapsing on one side, and then I'll start going to the outside. So spiraling out now, I'm going to try to collapse. And if you see in my hands here, I'm trying to collapse into a triangle. I'm trying to squeeze it down to a point, and then see how my opponent's going to respond. So we'll keep it going here. Cool. All right, I'll go back to that. So this is kind of the central thing with Tai Chi push hands. If you can root in a push, ground it, if you will. Just basically what I'm doing. Again, as I mentioned, I take my hands out to kind of squeeze on the inside to see where he's going to go. He tries to spiral back in. So a couple things happening for me. I mentioned earlier I like to use a thumb, index finger, or the middle finger even, just to kind of lock just behind the elbow joint. And here, what I'm doing is I'm pulling that in towards my body, but at the same time, I'm dropping my abdomen into my opponent's hands, and I'm locking out his wrist, right? So I'm locking him out and blocking him into position. So his goal is really to try to, basically push up my hips, take me off balance, or either, push me downwards, if you will, if you could. So what I'm doing, I'm rooting in that push, but I'm, going to use that same kind of force and energy just to kind of trap him in a position. And as he's trapped, what I'm going to do also, I'm going to drop my shoulder down. So what I'm doing is not only am I pulling him in, I'm also pushing up the base of my hand of his elbow, towards the center, kind of locking it in. So locking his wrist in with like a little bit of a twist as well, right? So then I can keep him in the position, and then just carry him on around. Boom, catch him on the other hand. Again, so I always try to make sure I pay attention to, and this goes down to sensitivity, levels, I guess, if you will, when you get into pushing hands a lot, right? Kind of knowing where that other arm is, and if I want it, or it could just lock the elbow right there, and then drop my elbow to his wrist to kind of bring his hand back to my abdomen like I did on the other side if I want it, right? And lock them into position. But it's just, following skills, right? You're adhering, you're sticking. So in this following suit to bring it right back into position over there. All right, so it also shows you right there, it's like bouncer control, right? I'm going to escort them by the elbow, and then I get their wrist, I'm going to taking to rise them up by the shoulder and all that good business to escort them out. So it's kind of same mindset, if you will, right? Keep it going. All right. Yeah, I had something going on there at first, but this reminds me of an injury I got back in Oxford in England back in the 90s when I was pushing hands, and one of my opponents rolled onto my knee, very similar to that. We were doing a moving step, I do believe, and I kind of threw him down. Then he rolled onto my knee, and I got my knee hyperextended, and I was out for couple weeks um, with that injury. But what was happening in regards to the actual motion, what I was trying to do is what I do more so, probably with my left side dominant, I do a little bit more rollbacks. So right here, as he's trying to kind of push in, I still got like heavy pressure, and I'm using kind of split activity, if you will, right? So I'm lifting and giving pressure up top on his right hand up here, and then I'm pushing down below on his left hand, right? So I'll typically use that kind of concept of split. I'm bringing both hands to the center, but at different levels, all right? And so he's feeling the heaviness on my hand down here on his left, elbow area, right? And so he's trying to fight with it, trying to come back down. He feels the pressure right now. Again, there's a lot of heavy press, and I'm pushing down and back towards his hip to keep that hand from coming forward. But also over here, I'm being very conscious of his right hand, kind of keeping it in place so it's not coming any further forward, right? So since he's been heavy, and I'm kind of trapping or containing that heaviness in his arm coming forward, I'm going to let it slide through, and then use that to try to feed him through. And I already got him kind of off position. He's tilted forward, his legs fully extended kind of in the back before he's about to peel up. Only thing that happens is that I think his legs are a little bit longer than than I was dealing with that as far as that particular application, if you will. So he's very long. So yeah, he falls down, kind of rolling out of position. So in this case, there are no points, but what I typically do a lot more on this side is definitely a lot more Lou, as opposed to the other side. You'll see a lot more on the right side down. You'll see a lot more forward action. Let's get back in the front split here. All right, so I'll let it finish. So I mentioned earlier about doing kind of like the split energy up, above and below. So that's the same concept here. So I remember just kind of feeling the heaviness in his hands, trying to like hand fight, if you will. So doing a little switch, splitting up the energy, kind of came into play there. So right here, what I'm doing, I'm squeezing up top, pushing down. Like I mentioned, I think earlier as well, I like to go for the hip. So you'll see me pushing the left hand of his towards his hip on the inside, and at the same time, I'm lifting up top his right shoulder by lifting up his elbow. So I'm kind of splitting him in half, at the waist, I guess, if you will, right, making him topple over. Boom. Right, so you can't handle that pressure to making that hip dip, making that shoulder lift, and just kind of follow suit with that action. And then again, listening, catching him before he goes too far. Right, bring him back into position. Okay, same thing as before, except for this time. I mentioned earlier if I did deeper, I could use my kind of spiral action, but since I'm just cupping underneath, same thing as before. I think I'm a little bit guarded from the knee this time. So nothing too grand in there, except for if you notice some of the things I'll do with the hands is let them come in really close, kind of get that false sense of security, and then I'll kind of give a little bit of pressure, so that way then it helps me do, if you want to call it the arm drag, if you want to just kind of get that roll back with a hand coming across. And of course, since I'm rolling back to the opposite side of the body instead of rolling across to the back leg, I do compromise my knee, particularly in fixed step, all right, pushing hands. But if I was moving more so, I want to move that leg out the way as I'm rolling back and things on that side. So, so the cupping, basically what I'm doing, I'm sitting, and I'm just going to pull them in that triangle again, right? So my triangle top is here, and it's going to pivot that way, and I'm going to pull pull to his triangle top, pull his center to the triangle top, and make him drop into it. Again, now here, a switch up. Now I want to pull him down. It's kind of something I remember. I was like, oh, he keeps going pretty deep. I want to see how deep he can go. And my thought was to pull him deep and then to rise up. But he kind of counters that in action here. He stays low, and he kind of, we do a little bit of hand fighting. And then time railed out, and then go back to my, as I mentioned before, try to get my thumb and index finger behind those elbows, so I almost had them, but I rolled on my heels as well. So I think that was the end of the match. So that's that. So it's kind of a rough breakdown. I kind of want to do a few more to get my feet wet, so it's a little bit rough. Probably rambled a little bit more than I wanted to. Also, the next ones I'm going to do of other people, so I have no idea what each person's kind of doing in regards to their mindset. But I'm going to look at and analyze through angles and through what I see as far as the application and what reference it makes to any of the Tai Chi principles that we commonly refer to. All right, so that's a wrap.